Hey everybody, today's episode is going to be quite different. We're going to be doing a tutorial on how to do photogrammetry on small objects. So our object that we're going to be looking at today is a small Tyrannosaur tooth from the mountains. It's an important specimen that this is explaining how we're doing the photogrammetry for this particular tooth. The equipment that we're actually using today is going to be the Canon 7D Mark II with a 50mm prime macro lens and the Hanel Giga T Pro 2 remote trigger. That's just to prevent any shake in the image so that we get the sharpest image as possible. An excellent way of making this process as cheap as possible but still being able to take really good photos of something small is by building a small light box. What I've done is I've just taken an old cardboard box for a lamp that I had purchased a while ago. I cut two holes into it, one for the camera to take the photographs through, and a second one on the top for a large light that I had built a little while ago. I just built bought the housing itself and the LED strips at a local hardware store, and the wire at the same hardware store, and just put it together. It cost me like maybe 40 bucks in total, so it's pretty cheap. That can sit on top. For making sure that the photographs can all be analyzed properly by Agisoft Metashape, I've just created, using Photoshop, basically like a little target paper with different symbols on it so that the program itself can recognize each of the individual different shapes and be able to realign all of the photographs properly to make that 3D model that we're looking for. The specimen itself, I just use plasticine to hold it, just kind of flatten it out, and then the tooth can sit on that nicely so that you can get the entire crown within the photograph, and then I just throw that in the center of the page. Once it's inside, you want to make sure the shadows are as far behind the specimen as possible. And I'll just turn on the light. And so you can see just barely that there's some shadow on either side. You just want to make sure that those shadows are a little bit behind. So you just place the tooth or whatever object you're taking photographs of just behind the center line of the light fixture that you're using, and then you can take the photographs. That makes everything much better. It's brighter so that you get a clearer image. You can see more colors, more shades. So we'll go to actually doing photographs now. For doing the photography today, I'm going to be hooking the camera up to an electrical outlet using a battery adapter. This just goes right into the camera. It plugs directly into the wall. In order to make sure that the entire specimen is in focus for each of the photographs, there's a few settings that you have to make on the camera. First and foremost, the f-stop. If it's too low, only a fraction of it will be in focus. If it's too high, then it starts to get a little bit blurry. So I've got mine set at 14. The ISO I have at 800. That allows it to brighten up a little bit more because the ISO is so high. And then I've got the shutter speed at 1/100th of a second. You want to make sure that the specimen itself takes up as much of the field of view as you can. That way you gain as much detail as you can get out of the specimen, and the colors are a little bit better, the texture looks a little bit better. So I've just got a small little tripod here. And get it all centered. And I've got autofocus on now. Just so that you're not constantly having to manual focus every single image. Plus with autofocus, there's a little bit of room for error because you've set the camera so that the f-stop is high enough that it keeps everything in focus. Once you start, then you keep on going. So you want to take first photo, rotate it just a few degrees. The next photo, rotate it a few degrees. take the next one, so on and so forth. What you need to do is you take photographs all the way around the specimen, and because it's white inside, the program won't recognize any change in the different or in the background. It's always going to be the same, so it'll recognize that image as being one object and that the camera's gone around it. And in order to do that, the best way to do it is you take circles around one level and then around another level, then you flip the specimen, do the same thing, embed it in plasticine, and then do photographs of the base, and then you can upload the photos. So we'll go to the point that we're now going to upload the photos. So now that we've finished up photographing the specimen, what we want to be able to do is put the proper white balance in and the color balance. So what we're going to end up doing is going into Photoshop here. We're going to open up all of the specimen photos in a bulk process. Takes a couple minutes with our 184 photos. So there's the tooth. We're going to go select all. That provides every single photo that we've taken. And then for white balance, the lamp that I built, I know was 5,000 Kelvin. And we'll do a little bit, I'll just hit auto. Yeah, that's not so bad. That lightens it up nicely. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit more though, just so you can see a bit more detail. That's pretty good, just a little bit. And just a smidge on the clarity. Perfect, just a little tiny bit. So that's all been set up. That's every single photo's been altered, just tidied up. So I'm going to hit save images instead of opening. We don't need to. Going to label it WCM tooth, and then it automatically puts in 001. So first image will be 1, and then all the way through will be good. I'm going to save it as JPEG so that it can be opened up in Agisoft better, and maximum quality. That will save on size of the ultimate file. All right, and then I'm going to hit save. It's going to go through. It's going to take probably about 5 minutes to do. So I will come back when that's done and show you the next set. Okay, so that process is done. We can close this down. And then we can go into Agisoft Metashape. Using this program, it is quite straightforward. When you open it up, this is the screen that you see. Go to workflow just to get started. Add photos. You go to, where are we here? The file that the specimen is in. So I'm going to open up all of the top, I'll call them the top photos at first. So these are going to be all of the photos where you can see the tip of the tooth. So it's going to open it up. What you'll see is all of the photographs in the bottom window. You can keep that down. You don't really need to see them. Again, super easy, workflow, align photographs. This is kind of where the GPU, the first two stages are kind of a GPU or the graphics processor intensive, and then it goes to the CPU for the next ones. So I'm going to go with, because this is going to be for publication, eventually I'm going to go with the highest. So I'm going to hit OK. It's going to detect all of the points within the photographs that it recognizes as being the same. So with the objects card that the specimen was placed on, there'll be tons and tons of photographs, or tons and tons of points that it can all line up all the way across every single photograph. So it's usually the quickest phase, so there's 15 seconds left in detecting the points, and then it's going to start aligning the photographs. That process can take quite some time, so when it gets to that point, I'm going to let that run. We'll see how long it... So now it's going to match up all the points. So it's going fairly quickly. It's a little bit faster when you don't have a lot of just kind of generic stuff in the background. If you've got photographs of outcrop, it takes a little bit longer. I've got a video that we'll do with that eventually as well, just because it's kind of useful for field work. All right, so this is... All right, so there we go. So it's been able to detect where things go. So that turned out really nice. All right, so we've got the tooth, the cloud built. So go back to workflow. That was a lot faster than I expected. So now we go build dense cloud. So this will give it even more points for it to work off of. So quality, ultra high. We'll see how long this takes. Okay, so we have now finished building the dense mesh. It took us probably about an hour to do or so. And you can see that we've got a fair number of points there. In fact, about, well, just over 20,000 points. They're not all shown, but yeah. So far so good. Just move this into the center, so it's a little bit easier to rotate. So after this, now the next thing that we have to do is build the mesh. So again, nice and easy. Just hit build mesh. It will ask what source data you would like to use. You can choose several different options here: sparse cloud, depth maps, or the dense cloud. Typical, I'd go with the depth maps. So I'm just going to stick with it. For publication, I'm going to stick with high quality. And then phase count, I'll go with high. That will just make it a little bit smoother, a little bit more accurate. Hopefully it will capture the denticles a little bit easier too. So hit that. So the mesh building is now finished, and we've got a pretty good looking model. Obviously you can see that it's not, a lot of the details not quite there yet. So what we'll end up doing is we head back up to workflow, and then the next and final stage that we'll worry about right now is building texture. And so you use diffuse map. Source data, you want the images to be its texture. And mapping mode is just your regular generic mapping mode. And then blending mode, mosaic. So it's all preset, pretty straightforward. So we'll hit that, and we'll see how long this will take. All right, that didn't take too long. It was only a couple minutes. And you can see the texture looks much better now. The surfaces are smooth for the most part again. You can see the nice little ridges or the denticles, the serrations. It's turned out really well. Really happy with that. So now the next phase. What you'll want to do, because we need to be able to see the bottom. And so what we want to do is come over here to the left into the workspace window and hit this little plus sign where the grid is. So that gives us a new chunk. So what so now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did in that first phase, except we're going to be doing it in a second chunk here. So we go to workflow again, add photos. Now this time we're going to add the photos for the base. There's the last one there. Open that. Now, because some of these photos are a little bit further away and some are a little bit closer, it shouldn't make much of a difference because we've got the grid pattern on the bottom, all the symbols on the bottom, so we'll be able to line things up still. But this is typically where you might have issues if you don't have some type of symbol below it where it can line up those images. If it's two different sizes, it tends to have a hard time aligning that. So yeah, this is kind of where you're going to want one of those symbol sheets. So we'll get that started. Align photos, the highest quality, and hit OK. So this will take a few minutes again, and when it's done, we'll come back and we'll just go through the same steps that we did before. Yeah, so now we've got that cloud, so that's looking pretty good. And yeah, what we're going to want to do now, again, go up to workflow, build dense cloud, and start that. All right, that is now finished. So that is our dense cloud. Now to build the mesh. See how long this takes. Last time it didn't take too long to build the mesh. All right, sure enough, it was only a couple minutes, which is good. So now we're looking at the base of the tooth, and now all we need to do is put texture on it. So do texture. All right, so the bottom has finished. So we can take a look at the base of the tooth. We can see the resorption pit, and yeah, so this is good. See the serrations again. So we've got the whole base. Now what we need to do is merge this part with the other one. In order to do that, obviously, the other side, there's plasticine on the bottom of the other side, and there's the plasticine on the tip on this side. And so we need to get rid of the plasticine on both sides. So what we're going to do, rotate this around so this is horizontal through here as much as we can, so that it makes trimming just a little bit easier. Do that. Up here, there's freeform selection, circle selection, rectangular selection. I always go with freeform. It just, you get a little bit cleaner edge, and you don't have to worry too much about such a straight line cutting through things that you might want to keep anyways. In this case, it's not so bad. So I'm just going to cut across the top of the plasticine, down and around the bottom, and then hit delete, and that gets rid of it. Circle that, get rid of that, go back to the arrow, just check, so there is a little bit more on this side, so I'll zoom in. So I want to try to keep as much of the tooth as I can, so I'm just going to go back to that, circle that, delete that. Still a little bit of plasticine there. So what I'm going to do, I'll just tidy that up a little bit. Just cut that edge out. All right, see how that looks. Okay, so there's our base, and we got to do the top. So go back to chunk one. There it is. Put that in the center, so it's a little bit easier to use. So yeah, we've got all the way up to the tip on this side. So what we can do, select, cut that out, and we should be good. I'm just gonna trim off, just gonna trim this edge just to make sure that there's nothing not supposed to be there. All right, delete that, select. Now, so we've got the tooth in the tip, all the way up to the tip, and all the way in the base. So now the next thing that we need to do is merge the two. All right, so with both pieces done, there's the top and the bottom. What we're going to do is try to merge the two. This can sometimes be tricky for smaller objects. I'm not quite sure why, but it doesn't always work properly. So we'll go up to workflow. Normally you would end up merging the two on point based. However, this time we're going to go with marker based, and so in order to do that, we have to place our markers. So we're going to go into chunk 1. We're going to just rotate this around, center it, and then we're going to pick a few spots kind of close to where the two chunks overlap the most. So we'll kind of go down to the base here that are really obvious. So there's this little triangular notch, so we're going to put marker 1 right on the tip of that just by hitting add marker. Then we'll go into the second model to do the same thing. Use that triangular notch. I'm going to put the marker right on the corner. I'm going to find another marker for this side somewhere, so perhaps the base of this little notch, that first notch up from the bottom of the crine. So we'll zoom in, make sure it's right on the corner of the enamel. Add marker 2, and then we'll go back here. That first little notch right on the corner of the enamel, and we'll try one down maybe at the bottom of this grain of sand that's stuck in the crack. Marker 3. Marker 3. And you can do it off of 3 markers, but I want to try to get one on this side as well, just to make it a little bit easier for the program to figure out where we're sitting. So we'll do this upper left corner of this little missing piece of enamel right there, number 4. And the same thing for number 4 on that side. All right, so markers are in. Now this is really straightforward. We'll just highlight both of those, go to workflow, align chunks, so both of them are aligned. And we're going to marker base the alignment, hit OK. This doesn't take long to do because there's only 4 points. And then we're going to merge chunks. We want to merge the models and merge markers so we can see everything. This usually takes not too long, but we'll see how long this goes. All right, and so we're done. Now you can see when we look at the merged portions, because of the coloration or the shadows or whatnot, because the plasticine was right along that line, this section is a little bit dark. So there is a way that we can deal with that. This side doesn't look too bad, but we can see it's not quite perfect. So what we're going to end up doing, this does happen from time to time, and it's an easy fix. So we're going to delete this chunk. If you ever need to, it's easy to do. Remove that. Now we'll go down to the second object, and you can see it's dark there. So the easiest way to deal with it, and it's kind of why we tried to pick all of our points near the base of this, is we're just going to cut that section off right there. We'll delete it. So now we're going to have a fairly uniform colored section for it to align with. So we'll do this again. We're going to align the chunks. And then we're going to merge them. All right, so that's done again. Now we're going to take a look and see what it looks like. And there you go. So the color, you can see there's a slight color change in the through here. That's okay. The texture is still all good for building 3D models elsewhere in Maya or Blender or wherever for printing. But yeah, it's got a complete tooth. You can see the denticles really nicely. The colors come through really well, and the photographs is nice because you can see the cracks in the enamel with photogrammetry. Regular scanning 3D models won't allow you to get that kind of information. Neither would you see the rippling very well. So that is yeah, that's how you put together a nice 3D model.